This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are, we are happy to have you with us today. I'm Alan.
And I'm Sandra.
And of course, yes, we are Twin Flame Divine Fire back today. We definitely have a great guest.
Yes, we do.
And we have Shane Robinson from Unbiased and On the Fence. Of course, that's his YouTube channel. And Shane's doing a lot of great work. And of course, we are going to be doing a proper introduction of Shane in just a couple of moments. Got a little business to take care of. First, our exclusive sponsor, which unless you're new to the show, you already know that would be Epoch or Epic Lasers, EPOCH Lasers. What Jim Onek has done in creating this company is he wants to reduce your dependency on pain medications.
Woohoo!
Whoa, now that's a rather rebellious idea right there. You don't want to be doing that, Jim. You're going to get somebody's attention. But what his products do is they use light to initiate healing all the way down to the cellular level. And these are used to treat a number of soft tissue injuries, back pain, shoulder, knee pain, and arthritis, and a lot more as well. So if you'd like more information about that, all you have to do is pop online like everything else at www.epochlasers.com.
That's EPOCHlasers.com.
Yeah, if you're taking pain meds, don't wait to become addicted, or if you are, get a hold of Jim today because it does wonderful work. He's we actually got a lot more detailed information about that over the last couple of weeks. Wow. The work that has been put into this. I mean, this isn't just something that he's thought, you know what, I'm going to use like an old refurbished laser system and come up with something where I can make money. No. This is not that.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
So check into it.
Yeah. And I can tell you, whether you care to believe it or not, we wouldn't have him on as our sponsor if we didn't believe it ourselves.
150%.
And hadn't looked into it. Yeah. So time to get on with our show. Of course, we're very happy to have our dear friend Shane Robinson back. Shane C. Robinson. Shane Cornell Robinson. He was born and raised in Christian religion, and he's been a lifelong truth seeker, and he found himself leaving organized religion for a deeper understanding of spirituality. Now, in the spring of 2017, his world was racked by the realization that reality was changing in a seemingly impossible way as a result of the so-called Mandela effect. And, of course, this opened a brand new chapter in Shane's life. He dove headfirst into the cause of the Mandela effect phenomenon, which would ultimately trigger what he calls his quantum awakening. And we're going to be talking a little bit about quantum things during this show, that's for sure. The realization that he was on a mission to help the world evolve into a more spiritually evolved planet of unconditional love, peace, and equality for all. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the show, he started a YouTube channel called Unbiased and On the Fence, where his purpose is to rise above the worldviews that are designed to separate us so we can unite as one. Doing a great job. Shane, welcome back to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me back, you guys. I love being here.
We love having you. I mean, you are just, we've been listening to your show lately, and you have quite a really cool little network thing that you got going on there. People love just hanging out in Unbiased and On the Fence. And I mean, it's like a safe place for them. They just love it there. I love the fact that they're so comfortable on a broadcast like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Many of us can't talk to our, 3D, if you will, family members and friends about things without being considered crazy, or we've tried and they've already thought, they think we're crazy already. So, yeah, this is a place people can come and share their stories and just enjoy time with people of like mind that aren't, there to judge them and just to be loved on, really, because that's what the world's lacking.
We've noticed this. There's a lot of resets going on. If we could get records of emergency rooms right now, I bet they are swarming.
Yeah, are you noticing a lot of this? I mean, people mentioning this in your show, or what are you seeing, Shane?
Do you mean with just strange behavior with people, or
strange behavior, illnesses? Just like with it was really odd how a lot of the timing took place when Alan had his first stroke, and then he had a second stroke, and then Paradiso that we're doing the giveaway, the music giveaway, how he slipped perfectly healthy and broke his back, and just a lot of people even having heart conditions or things popping up that normally weren't, and just out of the blue. Some of them out of the blue just happened. Yeah. And I know we've talked to several people about it, and it almost seemed like it was a reset button had been hit. And so we just kind of wanted to talk about that. We know there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of people that are going through illnesses and sicknesses right now. And in Alan's case, he had that. And then the second one around was almost like it reset itself. And things just started changing, and they're shifting. Like we hit a shift and went down a different direction.
Yeah, we have I do a weekly show with a lady named Michelle Wolf, and we actually discuss these symptoms that people are having, because, like, for instance, she had this one sensation like on the back of her head like a year ago, and I just now got it. So everybody, it seems like people get things at different times. So it's nice to know that, you know, when you hear these things, even if you're not experiencing them in the future, you know, that light bulb will go off and say, oh, I remember somebody talking about this exact symptom I'm experiencing right now. Because a lot of people are going to their doctors, and their doctors are like, hey, you don't have anything wrong with you. Your test came back great. And I think this is part of this shift that you're talking about, you know, and I think we're going up in increments. And with each one, we're incorporating these new light codes or frequencies, whatever you want to call it, into our DNA. And we're going through these changes, and it can be uncomfortable at times.
I think the universe gives us some signals. Now, we have noticed over the years, Alan and I will know that this goes up in octaves. So we'll see certain codes, like when we're driving down the road and we see license plates. It's really funny. Guys, if you ever get up to 9999 and then all of a sudden it goes to 0000, pay attention.
Right. That sounds like a reset to me.
Yeah. So we've noticed that when we get up to a certain line, we're seeing zeros all over the place. Really, really pay attention to what you're thinking about, because it almost simultaneously manifests.
I got to tell you, even on it's almost been on a daily basis now, where music could be playing in the background and words from the music will go right along. It'll be the words someone just said, or it'll be singing about what's going on. And my trip from Sedona here at the end of March, it happened several times. There was a song, Tori Amos song I was playing called 500 Miles, and we both looked at each other at the same time and then looked at the map thing, and we had 516 miles to home. We were like, what the heck? And then like there was another one talking about, you know, leaning or something. We passed this leaning tower thing, and another one talking about burning. We passed this fire in the sign. It's like we're just looking at each other like, oh my gosh, this is like so orchestrated, it seems. You know? I mean, how many of these have to happen before you're like, because we get them on the clock all the time, but now it seems to be ramping up. And even people that don't normally see them are coming to me and they're like, hey, you know, you always see synchronicities. I've been seeing them, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, why am I seeing this number over and over again? And, you know, all I can do is smile and say, I think you're probably on the right path. Just keep on trucking.
We know that you see it all the time too, and that's 333.
Yeah.
And when we see 333, we know we're manifesting something big. And so we pay really close attention, and it'll just pop out from everywhere. Yeah. You look down at the in the car the other day, and he goes, oh my goodness, look at the odometer. It was 33333.
Yeah, and it was, and it's not like I was looking for it. I just, for some reason, my eyes were just drawn. And I never look at the odometer, ever. And I just like, oh, get out of here. Are you kidding me?
It's so funny. We took this, what's really weird is I reset my tripometer when I was taking the trip down for New Year's to Austin. I did it when I got my gas here in Tulsa. And then we took the whole trip down there, went to the lake, did all that, got back, pulled in the driveway at 222. And we had driven 1,111 miles round trip. And I'm just like, are you serious? Is this really happening? It's just wild.
It was really bizarre because when we were in Washington, there was a place called Port Townsend, and Port Townsend was 111 miles from where we were. Mm-hmm. And then we had another couple that do work further up in Washington, and they had went to a town. And when we looked up the town, it was 111 miles. And they said it was just like this, almost like a negative vortex. Mm-hmm. But Port Townsend is like this really positive vortex. And they said, this synchronicity cannot be it's a synchronicity. It can't be a chance that we were right smack dab in between the two of them, 111 miles away from each one of them.
Yeah.
And so we just look at things. I think it's really important that people understand you're like this code debunker. You're walking around and you're debunking codes all the time. When your mind goes to something and you think, wow, that's really different, or that's really cool. And I'm walking around like that all the time, and I'll be talking, and Alan's just looking at me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Oh, it's happening again.
Well, a lot of times I can't tell if she's actually speaking to me or if she's just thinking out loud. So I just kind of, look at her out of the corner of my eye. It's like, okay, I look like a fool. Are you talking to me, honey? No. Okay. Crap. Okay.
So I think the biggest thing is to learn to laugh about it, because sometimes I get really serious and Alan will crack something wise and make me laugh, and it kind of breaks it. But I'm just in that constant mode all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we've had a lot of bizarre things go on, and I know you've seen a lot of bizarre things go on, and you went to Sedona. Oh, brother, man, we want to go to Sedona.
Oh my God, that's so awesome out there. I'm sitting up on Bell Rock and meditating. I put my hands down on the rock, and I can feel the energy, the tingles going through my body, and I'm like, is this just my imagination? And I take my hands off, I put them back there, I feel it come back. I'm like, wow, I'm really feeling the energies. You can see the trees are twisted in the way they grow. So there's signs of the vortex, energy vortexes being there, or vortices, I guess I should say. And, you can see you can feel it, but you can also ignore it. So it's not so overwhelming that, you can't ignore it. But as soon as you put your attention there, you can totally feel it coming in. It's awesome.
I think it's funny because we've went a lot of places and went out into the wilderness. And you had a caller that called into your show last night and was talking about Sedona and being there, and how you can't mistake it because the trees should be growing straight up, and how they were twisted and mangled. And we noticed that. We would find vortexes that were in the woods, and you could find them via the trees. All you had to do was look around, and you could really tell. We found the coolest aspens.
It was one of the most bizarre things I'd ever seen. It was they were about 2-3 feet apart.
Yeah.
And they were growing up like maybe at like one at 11 o'clock, the other one at 1 o'clock. And they went up about 15 feet. And then I swear to you, both of them bulged out almost like a big drum had been placed in between them during a certain part of their life, and then they came back together and just proceeded back up the way they had started off. Now, that is one of the most, and they were separate trees.
It's almost like there was something there, like you're saying, but it's probably still there, and it just had to grow around it, some kind of
the energy between it. It was like I told Alan, I said, go stick your head between it. He goes, I'm not sticking my head between there. I said, well, I'll go stick my head between there. And I did.
Would.
Like, man, the energy between the two trees was unreal.
I probably should have done it. I might have come up with the design plans for like a starship or something. I'm thinking, I don't know. Maybe I should have done it.
Yeah, I could see wrapping an arm around each tree and putting your head right between there so you're grounded, and man, you might end up on 5D Earth like instantly.
Yeah.
But what was really bizarre is not too far up. How far from that vortex did you find the other one where you just?
It was a couple of 100 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was having to go up this hill. It was probably about a 45-degree angle hill, and where I would go to get wood every day. I'd crate my chainsaw up this thing, and about 200 yards away from there, I had one of the other people up there, just kind of helping me out, and it was the weirdest area. It was probably about, I don't know, the size of a couple of tennis ball courts. But I walked into this little area and there was nothing significant looking about it, but I stepped in, and I mean, the hair on the back of my neck just stood straight up.
Wow.
And I looked at this guy, and I'm like, dude, we got to get out of here.
And there was nothing
We
growing
have
in
to
that
go.
area.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happened up there, but something wicked. That's the way it felt.
You think it was like a craft landed there at some point, or?
There was no vegetation at all
I don't
in that
know.
area.
It was. I don't know that I would say that. It was almost like I don't know, just like something negative had happened there, but I mean negative on a big scale.
Right. Was it a square or circle or just a kind of a blotch?
It was circular. It was kind of like a circular patch, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it sounds like something landed there, and the radiation. I don't know.
Yeah. It could have been a little gray landing pad. I don't know.
But he lost his hatchet in that little area and didn't go back to get it.
Yeah, I didn't go back. And I love that little hatchet because it was a homemade job and it was good. And I'm just like, it's gone now because I ain't going back up in there.
Oh man, what if you went up there and it's sitting there floating in the middle and you're like, oh my god.
I'd have been running back saying we can go to another campsite, baby. That's all.
For sure.
Well, it's been very interesting traveling all over the place, and we're noticing the trees we went to. We had no clue. We need to get in this on the next part of the show. We had no clue that you were from up around Estes Park.
Yeah, I spent a summer there actually. When I was 14, we lived in a cabin in between Estes Park and Loveland. So there was like a 9-mile journey down from Estes Park, and it's in the mountains there. You guys probably you would have had to. You can throw a baseball from one side to the other, but they have these little cabins and a little ice cream parlor, and I'm going from like 20 something years ago, so that might have all been torn down, who knows. But at the time, the family owned all that property and everything. It was pretty cool, but I loved it. Yeah, it was cold at night, but
Bodhran? I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, Alan just had a squirrel moment.
I'm like, what's a bodhran? Do you know what a bodhran is, Shane?
No, that's
Bodhran. I've got a nice little guitar from Emmy's Guitar Shop that I like to play, but I have no idea what a bodhran is.
Mm-hmm.
I could Google it real quick and seem smart.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Never let them know you don't know what you're talking about. Just use Google. That'll make you look like the smartest guy in the room every time, right?
Frame drum.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
Oh my gosh, I got 3 of these.
Do you really?
Or wait, 2 of them? 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, I bought them for the Austin thing. We had a blast. We were like sitting around like, none of us do it professionally or anything, but we're like, joining in with that. We had our little meditation bowls and we were like little kids. And it was funny. My wife was in the kitchen talking to one of the other people there. And she's like, he's in heaven right now. He does this stuff by himself all the time. And it really did. It felt like, you know what it felt like? It felt like kindergarten when they pull out those, little toy instruments and just let the kids play with them for a while, playtime, and it really felt like that. I hadn't felt like that since I was a kid. It was weird.
Isn't that a cool feeling though? I mean, you can just kind of go back to your childhood. I always think of the recorders,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My mom would say, can you put that thing away already?
Yeah. Kind of like, for those who can't see it, it's kind of like a tambourine drum without the little tambourine things on the edge of it.
Oh, the little tiny itty bitty cymbal things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Shane, tell us more about this. The Sedona or the Austin trip. I mean, number one, what made you want to go? And number two, how was your experience and what did you experience? And was it different than what you thought it was going to be?
It certainly was. Yeah. When I went to Sedona, at the end of September, my first trip there, I went to a conference, of course. It was wonderful. I was at the conference quite a bit of the time, so I didn't get to sightsee and go to the energy vortexes as much. So that's why I decided to take a little tax money and head out there for my birthday on March 30th, which was exactly 6 months later. And I took my wife with me, and we just did hiking most of the time, and I just went to these energy vortexes and meditated and just really took a break and just got out in nature. It was great.
It is really, if you never have, to sit in an energy vortex is the most amazing feeling ever. It's rejuvenating. It just it feels like every nerve in your body, if it's disconnected, it reconnects. And it just feels amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons we went out into the wilderness, was to reconnect. And it was funny because we had chose the site we were going to go to like 2 weeks before. And then as we're pulling up, now, mind you, we're going out in the wilderness for 52 days and we're thinking, oh, wow, this campsite was packed. And I said, it's okay, honey, it's okay. And he goes, but our campsite will be gone. We had picked it out and it was where these trees were. And as we pulled up, I said, no, it's not going to be full. There's going to be one site left and it'll be ours. And tell him, honey.
It was. and they had picked out every other site besides that one. And why they did that, I don't know, because I was very fastidious about, okay, where's it going to be good for, pulling our vehicle, and how's the access, and, am I, are we going to have access to wood? Is it going to be properly positioned for that? And I mean, everything was just bam, 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 perfect. And that was the only one that wasn't occupied.
Exactly.
Wow. Look at there.
It was like nobody could see it. It was like that vortex completely hit it, and it was just waiting for us, and just some amazing things unfolded. So I think when you're dealing with different vortexes, especially Sedona is such a high power area, that would just be phenomenal to sit in the vortex. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to sit directly in it, but I think it's rejuvenating. I really do.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay, so we knew that you had went the second time.
Oh, yeah.
Because we talked to you and you said, hey, I'm headed to Sedona again. And we're like, what?
That's right. Yeah, I talked to you the day I was leaving. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Estes Park. It was funny because for about 21 years, I'd been living in Colorado Springs. And so around the time Alan and I had been communicating back and forth, and, we'd see each other maybe once a year, and we had decided, well, let's bring the family in. The family hadn't seen Alan in a long time. He hadn't seen any of the grandkids. So we got a cabin in Estes Park. And that's basically where I can tell you that we started fully in 3D coming back together. And it's been a high energy area as well. And so we've had a lot of things that have happened. In fact, before we headed here? We went back to Estes Park to look at the cabin. It didn't look anything like it did.
No.
It was completely different up there. Totally, it was just like this majestic place when we went. And when we went back to it to revisit it, it was like, oh, it looks different. It was just so majestic. And when we went back there, we actually were going back to go camping at one point. And we're called to a camping area. And again, the mangled trees. And the first night that we pitched tent, we went with our dear friend in Thornton, Colorado, Michelle. And I couldn't sleep. And it felt like I was having these nightmares and different things were coming at me. And Alan was sleeping on the inside of the tent, and I was sleeping up against the outside of the tent. And it felt like buzzing all night long, and something was coming at him, trying to get at him. And so it was crazy that night. So I woke up the next morning. I told everybody, I said, man, I had a horrible night. And then the next night it was fine. And we thought at that point, to be in the human form as we are right now, I think we are healing certain fractures that need to be healed. And physically, we need to go there and experience it. We had so many phenomenal things. In fact, Michelle and I got lost for 3 hours on a mountain. We couldn't find the campsite. God. The sign disappeared. And then we ended up with a flat tire, and we just looked at each other and went, oh my goodness, what is going on? because up in the mountains, you don't have phone service.
Mm-mm.
So we knew that Alan and the boy were at the campsite waiting on us. And here we were up on the mountain, these two women after dark with a flat tire. And this beautiful couple came and helped us. And as soon as they helped us and we met them, we were able to find the sign.
Wow. Don't you love that?
Yeah, it was just like we were supposed to meet them. And I believe they were from Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah,
I think that's what you said.
A young couple, and they were trying to conceive a child. They told us their whole story in 15 minutes. And so it was just an amazing trip. And everything always seems like it surrounds around Estes Park.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find out that you had been to Estes Park just outside it. We know where Loveland is too. And that you had been there. And many people that we have met who we know are our soul tribe, our soul family, have been to Estes Park as well.
That's amazing.
So it's just like, as soon as we heard that you had been to Estes Park, we're like, yeah, go figure.
Yeah. It was an incredible time in my life. And in fact, I don't know if I would know my way around there because it's just the main strip going through there or whatever. But most of my time was in Estes Park, and we just slept basically in Drake. You know, we worked there. Or actually, I didn't work. I was only 14 at the time. But my mom and my sister both worked in Estes Park. Penelope's, do you remember that restaurant downtown? Or?
Oh, no, I don't remember that. But I mean, I've been there a few times, but I don't remember that in particular.
Well, I might be mixing up. Is Manitou Springs, is that in Colorado Springs or is that in Estes Park?
That's in Colorado Springs.
Okay, I might be thinking of that restaurant. I know there's the downtown area is just a little bit different with the shops. Both of them have it, so it's kind of, going from when I was a teenager. It's hard to, yeah.
That's why I know Penelope's, because it's in Manitou Springs. It's on the corner. And someone that we knew, his son had worked at Penelope's.
Oh, okay.
Wow, my sister worked there. That's
really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. I believe that Penelope's is still there. It's a little corner restaurant, really quaint.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've been to Manitou Springs many, many times. That is just an amazing town to go visit. Cobblestone streets, and they have the coffin races there. All kinds of stuff. It's just amazing.
That's a different little town.
Yeah. They have a haunted house there, and then Estes Park has the haunted hotel there.
Oh yeah, the Stanley.
Yeah, the Stanley. We did go by the Stanley the last time we were there. It was like, ooh.
That was weird.
Is that in Estes Park or Colorado Springs?
Yeah, in Estes Park. That was the one where they supposedly filmed The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a beautiful hotel, but kind of I don't know. I don't know if that was from a preconceived notion because of hearing that The Shining was there, but I got kind of a off feeling about that place too.
Well, my co-host on the Saturday night Power of 8 at 8, where we do our intention meditations on the channel, she went there for I think it was a conference with David Wilcock last year, and she stayed at the Stanley and got some orb pictures and stuff like that while she was there. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, we love orb pictures.
Yeah. Well, we got those in Estes Park too, though.
We got
when we were there.
When we were there with the whole family, just these orbs would show up in the pictures, and we're like, wow, there should be no orb from any light source. And it would just show up randomly throughout the pictures. And it was calm there. The whole family was there except for one daughter and two grandchildren, or one grandchild. And everybody just had the most amazing time. Everybody got along, and you know how it gets when you bring your families together. Sometimes there's a little bit of tension, but it was amazing. And when we went back and looked at the pictures, you cannot mistake the orbs. And Alan showed it to somebody, and they went, "Oh, there could be a light, blah blah blah."
Well, yeah, trying to explain it away, and I'm just like, dude, you weren't there. You don't know what you're talking about.
But just amazing things that we picked up there, pictures, and we just have this archive of these amazing pictures that we picked up all over the place, of orbs and light sources and vortexes, and it's amazing.
It is. It's a great time to be alive. And I think for a lot of people, in this community. I was one too. You know, we just get impatient sometimes. But I think, you know, happiness is right now. We can be happy in the moment. We don't have to wait for the shift to be complete to find our happiness and our joy and live on purpose. And all of that's available to us now. And I think that's what I think a lot of people are beginning to realize, that, oh, I don't have to wait to ascend to be happy. No, you can bring about this 5D into your life right now. You know, this loving way of living, if you will.
Oh, I believe that if everybody on the planet could realize that for the first time in planetary history, I think we're bringing all of our higher aspects into the 3D physical.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to be happy in that, no matter what it looks like. Because Alan and I have had some pretty horrific things that happen. But if we can look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, there's a bigger picture to this. What is it? And question it rather than saying, oh, no, I'm scared, or this petrifies me, or this seems traumatic, and just look at it from a different perspective. You can finally flip the energy and not be afraid of it anymore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even in your example that you just gave where you got held up and then you met someone synchronistically, I think anytime anything ever happens out of the ordinary, I take note of it and I'm like, well, why is this happening? I know it's happening for a reason. You know, I don't have a flat tire and then wonder, you know, did I just hit an L and it's just an accident? And I know there was a purpose. I needed to be held up or whatever. I just know there's a purpose in everything. And the more you look, the more you'll notice what maybe you're missing right in front of you, which is, you know, I think your story was a great example of how something happened. You didn't see the sign and then you meet these people and you can tell it was like one of those Celestine prophecy moments, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of times it, you know, and because we don't necessarily see the end result of like those little chance brief meetings, that we tend to dismiss them saying, oh, well, nothing happened. We don't necessarily know that though, do we?
No, we shouldn't.
We got stuck in an airport when we were coming back from Washington the first time. And we were like, we got there and found out that our plane had been canceled. Our flight had been canceled. And our host had already dropped us off. And we're like, oh, my goodness. And they couldn't get us on another flight for, 8 hours?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a long day.
And we met this amazing lady outside, and she was going to another country. I believe it was Australia, wasn't it?
I think so.
To start a community of healers that were coming in to help. And we just sat there and talked to her for hours and hours and hours. And it was kind of funny because in the airport, I went into the bathroom and I looked down and I heard, you're going to meet a man with gray hair and a gray beard. Look for him, or white. And I came out and told Alan, and Alan just doesn't even flinch anymore, bless him. And so I told him, I said, we're going to meet somebody with white hair and a white beard as we're in the airport. We're going to have lunch. And here comes this man and woman, white beard, white hair. And we had a table and they were looking for one. And I said, we're supposed to invite them to sit down with us.
Yeah, we were in the food court and it was jammed and there was only 2 seats. And we happened to have the last 2 seats. So we're like, yeah, come on over, sit down.
Long-haired hippie carrying a guitar.
Yeah, no case. Probably looked like a vagabond, you know.
And it was a construction guy and his wife was a beautician. And they sat down and wanted to know about us. And Alan started talking about our journey and everything. And the guy was just like kind of looking at us like, are you kidding? And
now you have to understand that he was the owner of this company. And apparently it was a sizable company. Okay. So, I mean, it was obvious they were used to the finer things in life. Mm-hmm. So to meet us, they were kind of like, oh, okay.
But his wife was so enthralled with what we were saying. And her husband kind of said something. And she goes, I wish we were more spontaneous like that. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it clicked what exactly that meeting was all about. And they had sat down with these looks on their faces that said, I'm not happy. And when they got up, they were smiling and they were talking to each other.
Wow.
And so we knew at that point it was no chance meeting. They were put in front of us for that specific reason. So we have a lot of that happen. How many of us have that happen and we overlook it? Or we'll get that little cue that says, hey, you're going to do this or you're going to do that. And you're like, oh, that's my mind playing tricks on me. And we don't really listen. But if we learn to listen and do it, we'll find out we have some really amazing encounters with people.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I know you were a little bit worried when you were going to Sedona. You didn't know how that was going to happen, but it did. You had faith.
I decided, I'm like, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to do this. I didn't even want to bother with bring about funds. And I'm like, if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. If not, and I just kind of threw it out there. I figured I wasn't going, but I wasn't going to worry about it. And sure enough, I had a number of people gave, and I was like, well, wait, maybe I can go, and so it worked out in time, and I went, and I was like, wow, this is great. So now I don't even I didn't even worry about the whole ESETI that we plan on getting together in August, just at ESETI Ranch in Washington. And so I've already got that paid for now. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew we were supposed to meet there. So
what if that, and I throw this out to you because I think if one person can answer this, I think it's you. What if that is what exiting the matrix really means? That we have enough faith to know that we're being guided every step of the way. And if we'll just not, if we treated life like every day was a vacation, because when you're going on vacation, how excited you get and you start packing your bag and you're making plans and prepping for it and everything like that. And you put the excitement into it because you're going. You're going. You've already bought the tickets. You know where you're going to stay. And you get really excited. But what if we looked at life like that every day, the exact same way, and put that exact same energy into it? What do we think would happen?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's scientifically proven that our intentions and our feelings do create, we can become that frequency match for what we want and actually draw it to us.
Well, we've been on one heck of a journey for 3 years, and we just go where we're guided to go.
Yeah. And I know at first we kind of resisted it, or I did.
You did big
not
time.
Sandra so much, but I did, because I was so into my logical mind, just like, well, no, the dollar and cents thing of this, number one, just doesn't add up. Number two, how are we going to sustain it if we're out in the middle of nowhere doing whatever? So yeah, I mean, there was a huge amount of resistance on my part, but somehow or another we came out the other end. And
we have really been having a whole lot of fun. Now, mind you, we do have some parts of this that are a little bit uncomfortable, but when I think you're trying to shift your whole mindset and the way that you look at life and the way you experience it, it's going to get uncomfortable. It's something we're not used to. Walking on complete faith means something totally different than what most people think.
Oh, yeah. And when I look back, I think that's probably the thing that gives me the most faith, because when I look back at my whole life, I can see times when I made maybe a bad choice. I don't want to say it was a mistake because it was all experience, but maybe I took a turn that took me on a longer detour around, but I ended back where I was supposed to be. So when I look back at my whole life, and I can see that even though I took the long route at some points, I've always been led to this point I'm at right now. And I had no idea what was going on. It was just sort of like, it just happened. So I take that as my trust that moving forward, whatever got me here will continue to help me get there. I mean, we can call it God, the Holy Spirit, the angels, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what it is, but I know there's some kind of loving, benevolent force out there that's been helping me and guiding me and got me to where I am right now. So I just trust that.
How many people that are hooked in, linked into your channel are experiencing that too? Because you have that key, that code in you that says, I have faith this is going to happen. And sometimes it's not easy to step into it. But when I do, I discover things are really cool.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are linked into you, and you are a living example of what it means to really step into some serious faith.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it does feel a lot like stepping out of the matrix. You know?
That's what we've chalked it up to. This is exiting the matrix and learning to live in a completely different way than what we were trained to live.
Out of the paradigm that we've been trained to live under.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, just letting go of all the fear that, you know, is put there by just everything. I mean, the news, the religion, and everything is an obstacle in and of itself. But I feel like I've reached a point now where I've made it this far, and I really feel like there's nothing really after anyone, or there's, you know, sort of moving away from that victim mentality that something's out to get us, something's always done on us.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that anymore. I feel like everything's set up the way it's supposed to be, and things are working out and going the direction they need to go. I mean, you do have to have the dark to have the light, and I'm glad I'm part of the light, but I also appreciate, you know, how they're making this journey more exciting.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'll tell you what, we do have to get ready and go into break here. On the other side, let's start talking about BQ, butane. What am I talking about? Oh, my God. BQH, QHHT, the similarities, the differences, and Shane's wild ride with this new modality. But first, I need to mention our exclusive sponsor, doing a great job. Imagine using light to promote healing and pain relief. Well, guess what? Epoch Lasers has found just a way to do that. The Epoch 980 and the Infra Helios can be used to treat a number of soft tissue injuries such as back, shoulder, knee pain, and arthritis, just to mention 4. For more information, visit them online at www.epochlasers.com.
That's EPOCH lasers.com. I get the biggest charge out of you.
I know. It's the distinct way I say WWW, isn't it?
Yes.
Instead of WWW. Is that? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, now that we're being totally sidetracked, if you want pain relief without the addictive side effects and the emptying of your wallet, go to epochlasers.com. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're very happy talking about leaving it on the floor. We have Shane Robinson here with us today.
Yeah, brother man.
He does a great
Putting it down.
Get down to get the funky. Yes. So tell us about what you've been doing, Shane. Of course, I know did you ever actually get into QHHT? I know you'd read a lot about it, and you're, I don't want to say a devotee, but I mean, you've read a lot about Dolores Cannon and the QHHT thing. And then last night, and I think we'd heard about it before, but for some reason
it didn't click until last night.
Yeah, and the term BQH got mentioned, and I was just like, BQH? What's that?
Right. Well, that's actually, it's quantum healing, and a lot of people know about Dolores Cannon and her books. That's how I got started, and when I started waking up, I started getting into her books and realizing all this stuff and really expanding what I even thought, you know, on the hills of religion, you know, I didn't even think any of this stuff was possible. So yeah. I began reading her books and was really blown away at the evidence that she had, you know. I could tell she wasn't lying, because she would have a session with someone on one part of the world and then continue the conversation that she was having with the super consciousness with someone on the other side of the earth. And it's like, that's just amazing that you could pick up, you know, how is that even possible? So
right.
That really broadened my awareness of what's possible. So I had wanted to take QHHT and even get a QHHT session. And when I checked into it, it was just so expensive at the time. And I thought, well, you know, $1,000 or whatever it was. I think it was $999 at the time. So I was like, yeah, it's a little bit out of my price range, maybe in the future or something, you know. So I just kind of put it on the back burner. And then as a result of having this channel, my YouTube channel, I got to meet Candace Krall-Goldman, and she worked right beside Dolores Cannon for years and trained and knew her real well. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. It's like, I met someone because, you know, I read all Dolores Cannon's books, and I didn't know she had passed away in like 2013, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was like, I got to get a session with this lady, and I'm looking her up, and I find out she'd passed away, and I'm like, no. And it was so weird because I felt her presence while I was reading the books. And then after the fact, I realized, oh, that's why, you know, she's already passed away, and she's, you know, you can really feel her presence. It's like she's talking to you while you're reading her book. So I really enjoyed reading her book. So when I met Candace Krall-Goldman, I had her on. She was developing BQH because In QHHT, they're not. There's rules about how it's conducted. You can't really add your own stuff with it. You can't do it over the internet or the phone. It needs to be done in person. So they have really strict guidelines. So really, BQH was, and it's named Beyond Quantum Healing because it is, now that connections are more reliable than they were, even 5 years ago. It's becoming a better way to reach people in rural areas or people that just are maybe they're bedridden or whatever. People that can't get to a QHHT session can now do a BQH. And the thing is, you can learn how to do it for $333. So it's like a third of the cost. And then I've actually got a promo code that drops it to $300 that I always put in all of my video links, because I think even if you don't want to do it for a living, it's nice to have it just to do it with other people. And if, a couple can take the course together and then they can give each other sessions. I just think it's a nice thing to know how to do, even if you don't want to be a practitioner per se,
Right.
I think it's really cool that other people are taking the healing modalities and techniques that they have and combining them with other ones. I just think that is really cool. I think that's what we're here for, to evolve and expand things. So would you like to get that or an email where people can get a hold of you to get the promo code, or do you have the promo code that you want to give out?
Or maybe even for a session?
Yeah, you can reach me at my email address is shanecrob@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there.
And the promo code is beneath every one of my videos on Unbiased and on the Fence. But if you do go to the website, which is quantumhealers.com/BQH, at checkout, you can just enter UOTF10, and that is that 10% off? I guess it's 10% off. Yeah,
that'd be 10%. Yeah.
So UOTF 10 at checkout will drop that price down to $300, which is really, I tell people, I'm like, look, even if you don't have the money, if several people went in on it together, you just gave them a session for it or a couple of sessions for it, maybe you can get some people to invest in you learning how to do it. So it's a doable thing. $300, it is a lot of money if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but there's options that you can come up with, because I think it's a really cool thing,
Woohoo!
How has it kind of opened your eyes to the way that you perceive things to be previous to the BQH, Shane?
Now, let me tell you this. This has been a wild ride since I've learned how to do BQH. So when I went into this, I thought, am I even going to be able to do this? I got to learn how to hypnotize. Can I really hypnotize somebody and all this stuff? So I went into it feeling like I had to do it all. But once I got in there, I learned how to do it, and I began to do sessions. I was blown away when it was just working. And I realized, I'm like, oh, I'm not even the one doing this. There's this whole higher realm of beings there, whether it's the higher self or angelic beings or just higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that assists in these sessions. And it's like, I'm just a facilitator. I'm there as part of this huge group. And so that was probably my biggest eye-opening thing, is that you can really not only feel the connection with the client, but you can feel the presence of these higher consciousness beings helping and guiding the sessions. Mm-hmm. So I've been really blown away by that. I've in real time, Sherry, she does the Monday show with me, Paranormal Frequencies. I did a session with her, and she went to the somnambulistic level. That's where you're in trance, and she didn't really recall any of it. And she started channeling an off-world non-terrestrial from a ship hovering above Earth in Earth's atmosphere. And, I'm thinking she's going to a previous life or something. So it takes me a little bit to figure out what's going on. I'm like, wait a minute. You're like, she's channeling someone in real time right now. So I started asking all these questions and what's going on. And they're talking about waiting for the split in frequencies. And I'm like, what's going on? And it's just like, wow, this is just so amazing. And each session is so different, but people seem to get what they need. Whether they go to the somnambulistic deep trance level, most people don't. I mean, actually, most people remember the whole thing. Sometimes they'll feel like they made it up, and you'll have to sort of rationalize with them, like, well, would you have said that? And like, well, no, I wouldn't have. Well, it's probably not your own imagination then, if the beliefs go against sort of what you were believing. And that happened with several of my clients, where they they got answers that they would have never said because that's not what they even believed. And it was really a paradigm changer for them, you know?
Yeah, because I think a lot of times whenever, people think of such things, like when you're channeling someone or a group or whatever, I think a lot of times people think, well, I can't do that because I've never had any sort of conscious interaction with these beings before. It always takes someone special to do it, kind of like with a little extra special connection, but basically what you're saying is just like, no, not so much.
No, it's like, a lot of times I find myself just needing to get out of the way. You know what I mean? It's like, they'll have questions and like my most recent session, she had, I don't know, maybe a dozen questions or so. And after the session, she's like, well, did we get any questions answered? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I tried, but, you were off on your own thing. She actually went to the somnambulistic level and it was awesome because she got all of this incredible imagery and, she's still processing it now, but it's just, gosh, it's mind blowing. I can't imagine what it's like for the clients because for some of them that goes so deep that they don't even remember. They have to listen back to the recording to even know what they said. And talking to Sherry, because she's had that happen, she says, it's pretty freaky. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around when you hear a recording of your voice saying things that you don't remember saying. And it gets kind of freaky, but it's cool. There's nothing really dark about it or anything to worry about. You're always protected. But at the same time, it's still, mind-blowing when, to hear yourself saying things that you don't remember.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be. I mean, do they notice any, I guess one of the first things that would come to my mind would be, do they notice any, like, tonal changes in their speech or maybe ways of putting things that kind of solidifies it for them, like whenever they're, it's being recorded, like some of the sentence structure, because I know a lot of times if you're channeling someone or something or a group of individuals, you'll notice speech pattern changes or something.
Yeah.
It'll say, I would never put that way.
Yeah.
And that kind of solidifies it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the case. I know with Sherry, she'll say yeah instead of yes, but in the session when it was the other non-terrestrial speaking through her, she was using words like yes. And there was even a point where I asked her about drugs and was it like drugs? And she was like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, well, Sherry works in like a rehab facility, so she knows what drugs are. But this non-terrestrial had no idea. And I was like, well, it's substances people take. And I'm like having to explain it like a definition of what drugs are, you know what I mean? And she's like, yes, then it's like drugs, and so it was a nice conversation, but yeah, it was definitely not Sherry that I was talking to because of several things like that, using words that Sherry would never use and not knowing words that Sherry definitely knew. So
wow.
I just think we're all linked into the superconscious, and if we open up to it and realize that we can discover things that we can't even fathom.
Yeah.
I know there are times when people are having downloads, and the things that they're downloading, they're like, I don't know anything about that. Why is that coming to me? Mm-hmm. I know Alan's had dreams about symbols, alchemical symbols.
Yeah, and different things.
And different things like that. And we're opening up to such amazing things. And I just think it's really cool to watch humanity in this shift. This is a great time to be alive on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. And what fun. And if we just are able to get in the flow, our lives could expand and be so amazing. But we get caught up in routines and we get caught up, I got to do this and I got to do that. And we start stressing about things and instead going, life is here for us to have fun. It's like this huge playground. Let's play.
Yeah, and I think fear holds a lot of people back because whenever you have anything happen that's out of the norm, of course you're going to be, surprised, taken aback by it. But a lot of people respond in fear. They're like, well, is this demonic? Is this evil? Is there spirits out to get me? But I think when you can sort of push that away and trust that you're protected, and even if you're a Christian, pray for protection by the Holy Spirit or Jesus or whatever makes you feel more protected. that's really what it is. It's more of like knowing that you're protected that makes you protected, I feel like. So whatever you depend on to do that, you can do that and trust that you're going to move forward in the light and the love, and nothing, if your intentions are positive, you're going to get positive results.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important too, because we always look at it like it's our higher selves bringing us information in that we need to know, or the puzzle pieces we need to put together. We don't ever look at it like it's some terrible demonic thing coming in and taking over. I just don't.
Well, I think a lot of times now we don't look at it like things are out of control.
No.
Because, I mean, and this as well as us, Shane, sometimes just simple change. It doesn't have to be a good or bad perception of the change. But, I mean, just simple change can throw a lot of people into a tailspin.
Oh, yeah.
That's a biggie.
It's thrown us into a tailspin. Yeah, you'll get away from the frame of mind and all the programming, and then you kind of slip back into it because you're like, oh, okay, well, I should be doing that. And then you do that, and it sends you into a tailspin. And you have to really look at things and decide what is best for me. Mm-hmm. And instead of everybody saying, well, you shouldn't be doing that or you shouldn't be doing that, how hard is it for us to go inside and go, but this is something I really want to do. Mm-hmm. This is something for me. It's not for everybody else.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think that really struck us, because, I mean, we listen to your show whenever we can, but last night, it just happened to totally present itself, and that thing of what is best for me, not necessarily having to please everybody else, the way that we always tend to do, or a lot of us can tend to do. But, there are times when you have to say, you know what, because we noticed a lady that you were speaking with last night going through a rather unpleasant situation. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, Sandra had to go through it. I had to go through it, something very, very similar. And it just came down to that point of saying, yeah, I could stay here, but is that going to be fair to everyone involved? Mm-hmm. And when do I start taking care of myself?
All right.
Instead of being the people pleaser and doing what's best for everyone else and just letting myself, forgive the phrase, basically just going to hell in the handbasket.
Mm-hmm. Or getting ran over by others, taken advantage of. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's sort of where we're caught at here, because a lot of us light workers are people that consider themselves to be here to change the world, starseeds, whatever. I don't typically like to use the label, but I like the more of a job description, so it's not really a label, but
right.
It's sort of like what you're here. You're on a mission to change the world, make it a better place. And a lot of people like that are so kind that sometimes they put others ahead of themselves and they don't take care of themselves. I remember my mom telling me about a lady who was like over in this other country feeding people, and she ended up starving herself to death because she couldn't stand to eat while there was other people. But she starved herself, but she was no longer helping feed people anymore. So we got to remember that you got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure you're taken care of, because if you jump in to save someone drowning and you're not wearing a life vest, then you can just become someone else out there.
Boy, when did we hear that, Sam? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard that a couple of times too. It's just like you're so used to jumping in the well that, to save other people, that you forget, maybe I ought to tie myself off with a rope at the top to where I can get back out.
Right.
And we've forgotten to do that. I don't know how many times.
Mm-hmm.
But it still works out. I mean, you're just going to take that detour, like I mentioned. The more I look at things, you end up back on the path you're supposed to be. And, these catalysts come along that sort of nudge you back on track. And some people can use it and become more bitter and get more off track from things that come, or they can, humble themselves or see the message in it and learn the lesson and look at it more positively and move that direction. So I think they're to sort of polarize us to being more negative or more positive. And so I think we end up where we're supposed to be. Some of us decide to take the long route.
I think if we repeat certain things that we haven't learned a lesson from it yet. So we're going to repeat it, but we can change it as we go and go, oh, well, that doesn't look quite like it did before. Mm-hmm. And realize that we're changing it little bits at a time. But at some point we're going to realize, hey, I'm cycling in this. I can cycle out. I don't have to be here. I don't have to keep repeating this. All I have to do is acknowledge the fact this is a repeated pattern.
Yeah.
And it just becomes this amazing freedom that we experience.
It is. It's a level of liberation that I thought I would never have, but everything's leading me more and more to that trust and that liberation, that feeling of liberation, just knowing that things are handled. No one's out to get me. I'm not a victim here. Just these sorts of ideas that seem to propel you forward in happiness and purpose.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was just thinking about while you two were talking was just like, you know what? George Costanza on Seinfeld got this, because you remember that one episode where he said he woke up one day and he said, you know what? My life right now is crap, and I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of what I was told to do. And he did, and everything started turning around. I mean, so even Seinfeld got it at some point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's amazing.
I love his analogies.
It just popped into my head. It's just like, oh my God, Seinfeld and Costanza, they were on it, and they didn't even probably know they were on it.
Well, you were talking earlier about moving back, about being real analytical or left-brained, and moving back to the right brain has been this, it was actually nudged, you mentioned in the opening of the Mandela effect. That was the thing that sort of, after I exhausted all of the left brain causes for reality, matter changing in front of our eyes, I was forced to the right brain. I was forced to looking at things more supernaturally or metaphysically, and it's really brought more balance into my life. So when people look at the Mandela effect as something negative, I tend to see it as this divine gathering of these people, because most of the people that find my channel, it was due to coming across a Mandela effect video early on.
We love getting a hold of Shane and going, we have a Mandela effect to tell you.
Yeah. So after the bottom of the hour break, we can go into the Mandela effect. I know you guys called me up with the whole 7 wonders of the world, and I'd like to get the chat to chime in on that one. And I've got a few other ones that are mind-blowing too. Like we got time up. You guys know Richard Simmons? Did I tell you about that one?
Yeah.
Richard Simmons. Now this is the one that woke my brother up. Now, I don't know. I've told him I don't know how many Mandela effects, and this one woke him up. He's never wore a headband in this reality. You can't look up Richard Simmons and find him wearing a headband. He never wore one, but you can find people dressing up like him, and they're all wearing headbands. But so I challenge anyone, look up Richard Simmons, the exercising guy from the 80s, for those who remember that. And
sweating to the oldies.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you remember the headband, right?
No.
You don't remember him having a headband either?
No.
Wow.
I remember him having an afro, a lot of hair.
I remember just a big bush on top of his head. That's all I remember. I don't remember the headband. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, he had the big bush, and it was held, of course, the headband squished it on the sides or whatever. But you look at this picture now. And so, for you guys, it'll be a trip. Look up Richard Simmons' outfit or costume or something like that, and look at all the people wearing the headbands. And you'll know, even though it's not a Mandela effect for you, you'll be like, why is everybody wearing a headband? That'd equally be just as creepy that everybody decided to wear a headband and the guy didn't wear one. You know what I mean?
For sure. And of course, I know Shane's into musical art. He plays 12. What kind of 12 string do you have, Shane?
I had a Washburn. I ended up getting rid of that back when I was broke. But one of my viewers, believe it or not, because I didn't have a guitar at the time, and he sent all the way from Scotland, sent a guitar. He bought a new one, and he sent me his old one. And so, it's there's just one of those manifestation things. I wanted a guitar. Someone sent it to me and followed their intuition, and it's great.
Very nice. Very nice.
I think that's pretty cool. We had the exact same thing happen not too long ago, where we were saying we need a new computer. And by that evening, we got a lovely message from someone we know that said, I'm sending you a surprise. We got a new computer, and it's amazing. We love it.
Yeah, it's got something called a Ryzen 3 in it, a Radeon Vega graphics card. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
But Mandela effects, we had an opportunity recently, like last week, that we just wanted to get away and go do something. And we're pretty close to Niagara Falls. So Alan and I planned a day, and we took off, and we have our passports, so we were able to go to the Canadian side, which is beautiful to look at Niagara Falls from that side. And just had the most amazing day. Well, coming home, Alan and I were discussing the fact that we just got to see one of the 7 wonders of the world. And now what else did we need to go see? And as we got into that discussion, when we got home, we thought, okay, what are we missing here? Let's go look up the 7 wonders of the world. And apparently Niagara Falls has never been one of the 7 wonders of the world until recently. It was added, and now it's 8 wonders of the world. And the ones that
and then we were seeing there's like how many different ones? I mean, it depends on where you go now, but how many are there now?
It could be anywhere 10? From 8 to 12 wonders of the world.
That's weird. Yeah, that's the sort of the weird stuff you come by, like the Rainbow Mountains blew me away. I'd never seen them. They popped up. They were in China at the time, and somebody told me about them. I'm like, maybe I just didn't see them. That's always a possibility. I can't jump on board and say it's a Mandela effect for me for sure, because maybe I just didn't know about them. And then, somebody said, hey, there's more Rainbow Mountains. I went and looked, and it's like in 3 locations. So I know now, after looking at it and sitting in China and pondering it and looking at all these pictures and all this, I know there was no other locations, but apparently, if anybody doesn't know about the Rainbow Mountains, Google Rainbow Mountains and look at the images. It's pretty mind-blowing.
I never heard of them.
You're in for a surprise when you see these mountains. There's rainbow mountains, there's rainbow trees, there's all sorts of insects and animals that are iridescent now and have this sort of rainbow look to them. And anybody that looks up at the clouds can see that the clouds, I know people say it's what they're spraying, but at the same time, I don't really know. I saw a factory spewing out steam and it was rainbow. So I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if it's showing us that the world's changing all around us. The sun's a different color. Anybody remember yellow sun?
Yeah. And I know that's one of the things that we've talked about a number of times. It's just like, when I was growing up, you could look at the sun, not for a long period of time, but I mean, it was yellow enough to where you could look at it. Now it's just like I can glance at it for like maybe a second and I'm done.
Now I sun gaze. So if you can get past the brightness of it for just a couple seconds, you'll notice that the sun is blue.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt my eyes. I can stare at it for long periods of time. And in fact, we had a beautiful day here, and it was like 72 degrees one day, and we just sat outside all day in the swing and in the lawn chairs, and the sun was shining really bright. And our host, we love her, was sitting out there, and she said, I just can't look at the sun. I said, can you gaze at it just for a couple seconds and see if you can get past the brightness? And you'll notice it's blue. Mm-hmm. And we did, and sat out there and sun gazed. But Alan's eyes are so sensitive, he can't even get past the 2 seconds.
No.
Oh my God, it's like God's up there arc welding or something. When you
and that's exactly what I was thinking too. It's like watching someone weld without a good pair of goggles on.
Right.
Yeah, good helmet. Yeah.
So anyway, the 7 wonders of the world, we are kind of curious. We wanted to put it out there. And that's one of the reasons we had talked to Shane. We're like, okay, you need to tell us what's going on here, because this is weird.
Well, the only thing I remember, of course, the pyramids, the Grand Canyon, the Great Wall of China, Niagara Falls. And, if you wanted to take it to extremes and be a little ridiculous, when I was younger, I used to watch wrestling all the time. And they used to refer to Andre the Giant, I think, as the 8th wonder of the world at that point. But outside of that, I don't remember being any more than 7. And they were, and whatever ones I missed in there. But
I don't even think Victoria Falls is on there. That's Australia.
Victoria Falls was in Africa, in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah, because that one a lot of people said it's a Mandela effect that didn't exist before, but I happened to work on a website for the ambassador to Zimbabwe in early 2000s, and that was their main tourist attraction was Victoria Falls. So it's not a Mandela effect for me. I've known about it for at least 10 or 15 years, or actually 15 or 20 years. Time flies. But that doesn't mean anything. That's the weird thing about this Mandela effect. You guys can go look at a list of Mandela effects, and one thing on there you'll know for 100% fact that it's not the way it used to be, but maybe the other ones don't apply to you. It's a very individual thing. That's why I think it's hard for people to see it,
Well, and I want to see the Grand Canyon, and we went to, I'm trying to think what else was on there. We want to go to the Grand Canyon. The Great Wall of China is just amazing.
There's a Great Wall of India or something now?
No.
What?
Really?
Yeah, let me type it in here and double check.
No,
Great Wall of something else. Great
Wall.
Well,
But the pyramids are amazing. I'd love to see them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this, because you mentioned Niagara Falls. How do you guys remember Niagara being spelled?
How do we remember Niagara? What?
Being spelled.
Niagara.
Niagra, I think. Or no, Niagara.
I love that. You just did what a lot of people do. You have the dual memories. So you said it the way it used to be, how people say it used to be, and then you receive that download, that we get, because we're connected to two different consciousness. This is my theory in it, at least, is that you're tapped into, and I think it's the introduction of this Christ consciousness coming in. This is sort of where I'm at with this whole thing, because the dual memory thing is the one thing. What you just did there, I've done, I don't know, dozens and dozens of times where somebody asks me, I'm like, well, it's this. I'm like, well, no, it's this way. And then I'll tell them both ways. So why is it that we're having that confusion? So it's Niagara, as you spelled it the second way, but people remember it as Niagara,
Yeah.
like you spelled it the first way. It's interesting.
I don't know. I don't know. That's really weird, because out of all the things that I think I can do in this life, I'm usually a really, really good, accurate speller.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I'm not even sure on that one anymore, to be honest with you. I really don't know.
We really wanted to look up before the show today, find an old Encyclopedia Britannica that would have the 7 wonders of the world and look them up.
Right.
And there are so many things that just, Alan and I are looking at each other and we're like, what?
Yeah.
We're doing that what moment? But we're still going to go see what we think.
Okay, but for those who aren't familiar with the Mandela effect, when things change, it will appear that they've always been that way. So you could actually open your encyclopedia and it will be current. Like there's been Bible verses that's changed, and people will dig out their old dusty Bible, and the print has changed. So it's not like an internet phenomenon; it's happening everywhere.
Right, because I think one of the very first things that what we saw was we were listening to a guy who was talking about the Who album, Live at Leeds, I think it was, and how Pete Townsend spelled his name. And he was a huge, huge Who fan, probably about as big of a Who fan as I was Queen fan. I know everything pretty much there is to know about each and every one of those guys. And he said he knew for a fact that, because he had an album that he bought way back in the day when it had first come out, and he said he knew that it was spelled Townsend, and he actually called his son up, said, look at it, tell me what it says, and it had an H, Shend in it. And he said, I swear to God, I bought that thing when it was brand new.
Wow. See, so that's amazing. And it changed. So, it can be, that's the thing, people had all these Berenstain videotapes and books and stuff, and they're like, no, it's Berenstain. Let me go look at it. And then they pull it out, and now it says Berenstain. Appears to have always been that way.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's a trip. So do you know about the We Are the Champions ending? I think we might have talked about that last time. Did you know the ending of that? Never says of the world, the very final of the world. Do you remember it having one originally or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's.
Yeah, I remember that very distinctly. Yeah, of the world, and then he just fades off.
Right. So it doesn't do that anymore.
Really?
Yeah, We Are the Champions, and he never says of the world at the very end.
Okay, that's just wrong.
Yeah, he does. He does earlier in the song, but that final one where he says of the world, you're just kind of left there like, is he going to sing it? What's going on? Where is it? And there's an interesting video where celebrity, I think it was like celebrity karaoke in the car, and it had 4 celebrities in there, and they're all sitting there waiting for the world. So that's funny.
Oh man, I mean that's like playing the Star Spangled Banner and leaving off the very last note. You just keep lurching forward, waiting for it.
Right.
I want to know I want to know when it became the standard thing to put an apostrophe S after everything.
Yeah. So you saw that one too. So
I've seen that all over the place, and it drives me batty.
So even when it ends with an S, like Jesus now is no longer Jesus with an apostrophe; it's Jesus with an apostrophe S.
Yeah, and
it's ridiculous.
Because the way I grew up, you only put like say we're talking about Robinson's car.
Right.
Shane Robinson's car, it would be your name with an apostrophe S or without
show possession, right? You're showing
or without the apostrophe. And if it was, Shane Robinson's going here, then you would have the apostrophe S. Shane Robinson is going here.
Right.
But now they put it after everything, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that's constantly shifting. So I think when I first heard about that, my Word program was correcting things to reflect that, and then I went to show somebody, and it was no longer doing that. So, what you check today might be changed tomorrow. It's really weird, and it's really strange when you come across one of these. They call them flip flops, but when you look into something and you're not really sure about it, like for me, it was Houston, we have a problem, is how I remembered it. But they said at the time it was Houston, we've had a problem. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, yeah, I can't be sure. Maybe he's always said Houston, we've had a problem. And then there's these message boards that's discussing it, saying, no, he's always said Houston, we've had a problem. And then somebody said it changed back. So I went and listened to it. And sure enough, Houston, we have a problem. And I'm scratching my head because it's the same clip in the movie, but it's changed. And then the arguments on these message boards are still there. And people are arguing, saying it's always been, Houston, we've had a problem, but it's no longer that way anymore. So it's, it's crazy. It's funny reading this stuff,
The thinking man is the one that cracks me up. Okay.
So you remember it, fist to forehead?
Fist to forehead, and he was thinking,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it went down, and it was on his chin, and then all of a sudden now it's down under his chin, and it looks like he's trying to eat his knuckles. He's bent so contortioned, and it's like crazy. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and he's shifted completely. If you try to sit like he's sitting for any length of time, you won't be able to, because his right elbow is on his left leg. He's completely shifted onto his left side. And that's actually what led me down the path of trying to decipher what these Mandela effect changes were, because he had shifted to his left. He now has something protruding out the left side of his head, and he's no longer thinking with his third eye. He's staring down at the ground. And I think it was showing, like, it was a revelation of where we've gone wrong as a people, that we've shifted to the left brain. We've sort of forgotten our spirituality and our love for others, and this sort of idea. And, even school, it's geared towards the left brain, other than like music and art and stuff. Mainly it's all left brain stuff. Climbing the corporate ladder, that's all left brain stuff. Yeah. And, we're just stuck on the left side. And for me, the Mandela effect sort of pushed me back into more of the metaphysical stuff and being more open-minded to really anything happening. When reality is changing right in front of you and you can see it, you have to question everything.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if he ever becomes to the point to where he's like bent over at the waist with his hands on his knees, looking like someone who just got done running 5 miles, I'm like, okay, I'm out of here, man. Y'all are getting ridiculous now.
But I think we really have to pay attention to the Mandela effects. I mean, when you start having Mandela effects, and for a fact, I think we've talked about it on the show before. When I went to get my driver's license, the lady swore that I came in and got a driver's license, a replacement driver's license. I hadn't got a replacement driver's license. She came up with this long, elaborate story. And then I said, it's not me. Somebody's had to have stolen my identity. And she flipped the picture around, and it looked like a drunk me with black hair. What? And I haven't had black hair since I was a kid. I either kept it red or blonde.
And if I would have been in on that conversation, I would have been the first one to tell her, lady, look, you don't know her, because if someone would have even taken a picture of her looking like that with their cell phone, she'd have taken the phone from him and thrown it in the bathtub or something. So, you're barking up the wrong tree here.
Oh my gosh, that was a trip. Wow, I bet you were like, am I dreaming? That's the first thing I think.
All I could do was throw my hands up in the air because the lady literally told me, okay, my license had expired around on my birthday, and I was late getting there to re-up my license. Mm-hmm. So, as I'm sitting there, the lady just refuses to give me my license. I'm going to have to take the test all over again. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for an ID. Can I pay for an ID and get one? And so 3 years ago, when we went out on our little 52 days of balance, I no longer have a driver's license.
Wow.
And now I have to retake the test. And I'm like, okay, does this woman know how old I am? And Alan looked at her and goes, can you give her credit for not getting pulled over in the 10 years? And she goes, well, she came in during April and May of such and such year, and that null and voided any 10-year driver's license. So she's been driving on an expired driver's license for 5 years. And Alan goes, well, what would have happened if she'd have got pulled over? And she goes, well, hopefully the police would have understood.
Oh, that's nice of you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
So really strange things. Are we paying attention to the Mandela effects that are happening to us personally?
Yeah, and there are personal ones happening all the time that people notice. I'm like, how did you notice that? I'm not that observant with stuff. I'm surprised I was able to see it happening to begin with. It took me a year to realize it was really happening to begin with. So, I say if I can see it, anyone can see it happening, because I don't pay attention to anything like that. But, I had that thinker statue we've been talking about on my desk growing up, and I drew it over the years and things like that. So there was no doubt in my mind, because I remember my fist to my forehead on my drawing looked really crappy. It was like his arm was too long, the wrist was bent, it looked like his arm was broke, and I was frustrated. So it made this memory in my mind of just, oh, the hell with it, and throw it out or whatever. But yeah, it's one of those things where, it was branded into my memory. So I know it was the other way,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really a memory thing. It's more like a knowing, like, I don't have to think about what color my eye is or anything like that. There's some things you just know,
Yep. Totally get you. Well, I tell you what, it's hard to believe it's already been about 2 hours. So
wow, it always flies. Having fun.
It always does. What you doing a thing later on tonight, Shane?
Yep, actually at 8 Eastern.
Okay.
What is that going to be? That's going to be
about an hour and 9 minutes away.
Yep. We're going to be doing the Power of 8 at 8. We're going to have Cynthia Sular on. And we're going to be discussing more Mandela effect and reality shifting, and how we can actually take a proactive role in assisting reality to shift in our favor. So, yeah, it's going to be a great conversation.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I think after we get off of here, we're going to do what we need to do, and we'll probably be hanging out with you later on tonight. So we'll just do a little quid pro quo thing. How about that?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and people can find me at UOTF.net, and there's a schedule on there. And that they can also link into the YouTube channel, but it's easy to remember, UOTF.net.
And are you doing BQH sessions with folks, Shane?
I haven't started. I've been doing them, but I haven't started actually, getting paid for it. I was actually trying to get comfortable enough, and you would think after dozens of them, or a couple of dozen, I guess now, that I would start seeing some common threads going throughout them. And there is, but they're so different. Each one's so different. I don't think I'm ever going to get to the point where it's like, well, I finally got it down. I've come across any surprises that might pop up. But yeah, probably this month or next month, I'll start, broadening my clientele list.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I tell you what, as far as being an integrous reading, I would definitely trust you. That's for sure. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we think the world of you. We love what you're doing. We think it's great that you are hooking all these wonderful people up who are looking for answers, because, that's what we need right now. We get enough of the division thing, and it's nice to know that there's a little bit of a breath of fresh air out there, like yourself, who's helping people say, you know what, this is where we can connect, and this is where we can get it all together, and then help spreading that out from here. So for what you do, Shane.
Oh, I appreciate everything you guys do too, man, and it's wonderful to be part of the family, you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Family ain't always blood, right?
Yep.
Well, and I think it's funny. Our daughter's soon-to-be mother-in-law lives in Tulsa. Go figure, and listens to the show. So we wanted to give a big shout out to Jen and say hi to her.